Today I'm going to show you how to set up your DaVinci Resolve preferences. So let's get into it. First off, let's open DaVinci, and if you do not have DaVinci Resolve, check out my last video where I showed you how to install it. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go into DaVinci Resolve. And once DaVinci Resolve is opened, you're going to be greeted with this menu. To make it simple, we're just going to create a new project and call it Test. You can name it anything you want. I would recommend starting with the date first and then the project name, so it's easier to organize. Then we're going to hit Create, and there's our project. But we're going to go into the settings, and I'm going to show you what settings you need to use to get the best performance. Okay, first of all, we're going to hit the little settings icon on the bottom corner, and then we're going to go into master settings. I personally set my timeline to be 4K, and I downscale my footage from 6K. So that will be 3840 by 2160 Ultra HD. If you're doing vertical content for YouTube Shorts or TikTok, just click Use Vertical Resolution, and that will change it from being horizontal to vertical. Next, change your frame rate. Now, by default, it's set to 24 frames a second. I personally like 30 frames a second, so I've set that right here. It's actually 29.97, but most people call it 30. Besides the resolution of your timeline, you're going to want to change one more thing in this menu. That would be the color management. Make sure that you're using DaVinci YRGB and that your timeline color space is set to PCI D3 and sRGB. It's kind of a good middle ground. And to keep it simple, most platforms support this, so this is what I would recommend. The next thing we're going to do for audio is going to Fairlight and set our audio sample rate to be 48 kilohertz. If you want to do more advanced stuff with audio, you can always raise that to 96, but 48 will be the most common standard. Okay, next we're going to go into capture and playback right above that, and make sure that if we have a video capture or playback device, for example, if you're using PCIe video capture cards or something like that, make sure that those settings are matched to your timeline settings, at least if that hardware supports it. Next, you're gonna hit save on the bottom, and then there's one last thing we're going to need to do, and that is going into the DaVinci Resolve menu and hitting preferences. This gives us more advanced control over the software, and once you change any of the settings in this menu, you will have to restart the program. So the first thing we're going to do is go into the memory and GPU tab, and we want to get the most performance out of this computer. So make sure to max out the RAM usage, and if you're using a Mac with Apple Silicon, either use OpenCL or Metal. I recommend using Metal as it gives the most performance out of the chip, but you could also throw it on auto if you just wanted to let it do it itself. Next, we're going to go into video and audio decoding, and this is important if you have an audio interface. Normally, I have an audio interface set up, but this is where you're going to find audio playback and video playback controls. So if you want to send an extra screen with a clean feed or something like that. I'm not going to tell you how to set this up because it really depends on your setup that you're using, whether you're using a Mac or a PC, and how many displays you have set up. But video and audio I/O would be how you can control that. Next, we're going to hit save, and it's going to want you to restart the software. So just hit OK. Okay, now that DaVinci Resolve has restarted, we're going to create a timeline. To do this, right-click on the media pool and hit Create New Timeline. You can name this anything you want. I'm just going to leave mine as Timeline 1. And if Use Project Setting is enabled, then all the settings that you changed in your settings menu will be applied to your timeline. So hit Create. So that is how you set up DaVinci Resolve preferences to get the best performance. One last thing is, if you're having playback issues, go into the top menu where it says Playback, go to Timeline Proxy Resolution, and set that to either half or quarter. This will dramatically improve playback performance if you need that. And you can always tell if your frames are dropping by a small icon at the top left of the screen. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell to see when the next video comes out. If you want to become a Patreon supporter and get early access to videos, as well as some other exclusive benefits, check that out in the description below. Well, that's pretty much it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.